Fastly global outage of June 8th, 2021. A DevOps Postmortem. It was a crisp morning, and the internet woke up to find itself in a state of chaos. At 9:47 Universal Time, coordinated on June 8th, 2021, a glitch in Fastly's content delivery network, CDN, services began to ripple across the globe. Suddenly, high-profile websites like Amazon, Reddit, Spotify, and even the BBC found themselves offline. The scale of the damage was staggering. It affected 85% of Fastly's network, causing a global outage that lasted for hours. The initial onset of disruption was so sudden, it felt like someone had flipped a switch on the entire internet. Panic set in as engineers scrambled to identify the source of the problem. But what they found was both surprising and terrifying. A valid customer configuration change had exposed a dormant software bug within Fastly's system. The stakes were incredibly high. This wasn't just a technical hiccup. It was a full-blown outage that threatened to bring down some of the world's most beloved online services. As the minutes ticked by, the team raced against time to contain the damage and find a solution. It was like being, all right, let's dive into the story. Fastly is a company that specializes in content delivery networks, or CDNs for short. They're like the backbone of the internet, making sure websites and applications load quickly all around the world. On June 8th, 2021, something went horribly wrong. Imagine you have a big toy box full of different toys. One day, you decide to rearrange some of them based on a new rule your friend gave you. But unbeknownst to you, this new rule was like a time bomb. When you put it into effect, suddenly almost all the toys in your box started breaking. That's kind of what happened with Fastly. They made a change based on a customer request, and boom, 85% of their network went down. High-profile websites like Amazon, Reddit, Spotify, and even the BBC were affected. It was like the internet had a massive heart attack that day. The good news is, Fastly's team sprang into action. They quickly identified the problem and fixed it, getting most services back online in just under 2 hours. But this. All right, folks, let's dive into the before the storm section of our Fastly global outage story. So, imagine a sunny day in early June 2021. Everything was humming along at Fastly, their content delivery network, CDN, services powering websites and apps across the globe like Amazon, Reddit, Spotify, and even the BBC. It's all smooth sailing until May 12th when they roll out a new software deployment. Now, here's the kicker. This update introduced a bug that was dormant but ready to pounce under specific conditions. Fast forward to June 8th at 9:47 Universal Time coordinated. A valid customer configuration change triggers the bug, and suddenly, things go sideways. The impact is immediate and massive. 85% of Fastly's network starts throwing errors. It's like a perfect storm brewing with no warning signs in sight. Now, this wasn't just any old glitch. It was a wake-up call for the team at Fastly. They scrambled to identify the source of the disruption, which they did relatively quickly, within 10 minutes. But it was 9:47 Universal Time, coordinated on June 8th, 2021. The sky was clear, the sun was shining, and everything seemed normal in the world of Fastly. But then, the alarm started blaring like 1,000 church bells in a small village. Our monitoring systems picked up an unusual pattern, one that looked like a massive hiccup across our entire network. It wasn't just one server or region. It was 85% of our CDN services going belly up. Panic set in as we saw the first red alerts flash on our screens. The initial onset of global disruption was sudden and severe, affecting high-profile websites like Amazon, Reddit, Spotify, and even the BBC. Engineers scrambled to their desks, coffee in hand, ready to face what looked like a full-scale internet apocalypse. It was time for war stories to be written in real time. It was 9:47 on a sunny June morning when the cascade began. A valid customer configuration change, seemingly harmless, exposed a dormant software bug that had been lurking since May 12th. Within minutes, 85% of Fastly's network started throwing errors. It wasn't pretty. Monitoring kicked in at 9:48, but by then, the damage was done. At 9:58, Fastly put out a status post, hoping to contain the chaos. But the bug was like a wildfire, hard to extinguish once it got going. By 10:27, engineers had identified the culprit, but disabling that one config took time. Services began to recover by 10:36, but the majority didn't regain full functionality until 11 o'clock. The incident was fully mitigated by 12:35, and Fastly's status page went green at 12:44. But not before it had a global audience. Amazon, Reddit, Spotify, and the BBC were all affected. The blast radius was huge like when. So let's dive into the root cause of this global outage. It all started with a software deployment on May 12th, where an undetected bug was introduced. Now, bugs happen, right? But here's the kicker. This one was dormant and only got triggered by a perfectly valid customer configuration change on June 8th. That's when things went sideways. Imagine you've built a house with a hidden defect, and it's been sitting there for months, unnoticed. Then one day, someone moves in and flips a switch that causes the whole building to collapse. That's kind of what happened here. The configuration change was legitimate. It wasn't a malicious hack or an error. It just happened to activate the bug, which caused 85% of Fastly's network to return errors. So why did this happen? Well, in the rush to get new features out and improve performance, sometimes the testing process might not catch everything. And when you're dealing with a global CDN that serves millions of users, even a small oversight can have massive consequences. The bug was there, hiding in plain sight. Well, folks, let's dive into the blast radius of that Fastly outage on June 8th, 2021. It was like a nuclear strike on the internet, affecting over 500 services worldwide. Picture this. Amazon, Reddit, Spotify, and even the BBC, all down in a matter of minutes. The impact was staggering. Users couldn't access their favorite sites, businesses lost productivity, and developers were left scratching their heads, wondering what went wrong. The outage hit 85% of Fastly's network, causing chaos for hours. It wasn't just websites. It affected apps too. Imagine trying to stream your favorite song only to get a 404 error. Now multiply that by millions of users. The recovery time was brutal. Over 3 hours from initial disruption to full mitigation. And let's not forget the cost. It's estimated that businesses worldwide lost tens of millions of dollars in revenue during this downtime. Now, you might be thinking, how could this happen? Well, it all came down to a software bug introduced during a deployment on May 12th, which was then. All right, folks, let's dive into the heart of the action. When the alarm bells started ringing at 9:48 Universal Time, coordinated on June 8th, it was clear we were in for a wild ride. Our monitoring systems picked up the first signs of global disruption, and I'll be honest, that initial gut check was like getting hit by a freight train. Within minutes, the team had identified the culprit, a valid customer configuration change that exposed an old bug hiding in our system since May 12th. It's like finding a landmine under your feet while you're busy planting flowers. By 9:58 Universal Time coordinated, we were out there in full force, hitting up every angle of our infrastructure. Fastly engineering swung into action, pinpointing the problematic config by 10:27. And just like that, at 10:36, we hit the kill switch. Problem solved? Not quite. The majority of services started to recover around 11 o'clock, but it was a marathon, not a sprint. By 12:35, the incident was fully mitigated. So what happened next? Well, the fix was swift and brutal. Fastly's engineering team detected the disruption, identified the cause, a valid customer configuration that exposed a dormant bug, and disabled it immediately. It's like when you accidentally spill ketchup on your shirt. You don't beat yourself up over it, you just clean it up fast. The impacted services started to recover almost instantly, and by 10:36 Universal Time coordinated, the majority were back online. By 11 o'clock, things were looking good, and by 12:35, the incident was fully mitigated. Fastly's status post was resolved by 12:44, and they even started deploying a permanent fix for the underlying software bug at 17:25 Universal Time coordinated. It's like when you find a bug in your code. You don't just leave it there, right? You fix it. So, Fastly did exactly that. They created a permanent fix and rolled it out across their network to prevent this from happening again. It was like giving their system a big, necessary update. But here's the... So, what did we learn from that fiasco? First off, it's clear we need to step up our game in software quality assurance. That bug could have been caught if we had more rigorous testing processes in place before deployment. It's not just about catching bugs. It's about making sure they stay dormant. Now, when the inevitable happens and a critical incident strikes, You got to be ready to hit the ground running. Fastly was quick to identify the problem and disable the problematic configuration, but we need to get even faster at this. We should invest in our platform's safety and resiliency. Tools like WebAssembly and Compute at Edge can help isolate issues and minimize the blast radius. Customer configurations are code too, folks. They need just as much scrutiny as production code. Reviews, testing, and reversibility should be standard practice. And speaking of reversibility, we need robust global disable and rollback mechanisms that can be activated in a heartbeat. Monitoring systems? They're your lifeline during an outage. Make sure they're on a separate, resilient network path so they don't go down with the rest. It's all about. That's how Fastly turned a very bad day into a lesson. If this saved you an outage, subscribe for the next postmortem.